Travis raised his glass at the dinner table, his voice cutting through the warm chatter like a blade. "To fathers who actually stick around," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went silent. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth, suspended in air that suddenly felt too thick to breathe. I looked at my daughter Lauren, but she stared down at her plate, cheeks flushed. Travis wasn't finished. He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine with practiced ease. "Some men only show up when they're old and lonely, right?" Nervous laughter rippled around the table. My hand trembled. I set down my fork carefully, the metal clinking against porcelain too loudly. "Excuse me," I managed, pushing back from the table. My chair scraped against hardwood. As I stood, Travis leaned close enough that only I could hear. "Lauren told me everything about you," he whispered. I walked toward the hallway, my vision blurring at the edges. Behind me, conversation resumed like nothing had happened. "My name is Mark Ellison. I'm 58 years old, a high school history teacher in Cedar Falls, 3 years from retirement. I drove 4 hours to get to this dinner, through rain and Friday traffic, because Lauren had invited me. It had been the first invitation in months. Now I sat in my car in their driveway, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. I wasn't the father Travis described. I never abandoned my family. 25 years ago, my wife Angela packed our 8-year-old daughter into her sedan and left while I was teaching summer school. I came home to an empty house and a note on the kitchen counter. "Don't call us again." 3 words that shattered everything. For years, I sent letters, child support, birthday cards. Most came back unopened. Angela had poisoned Lauren against me, though I didn't understand why until much later. I'd been paying for sins I never committed, carrying shame that belonged to someone else. Back home that night, I couldn't sleep. The humiliation burned like acid in my chest. I sat at my desk, the same oak desk I'd had since before Lauren was born, and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a small wooden box I rarely touched. Angela's wedding ring sat on top, the gold band I'd found in my mailbox 7 years ago, after she died. No note, no explanation. Just the ring, returned by someone who never identified themselves. Beneath it, I noticed something I'd missed before, a yellowed envelope, unsealed, addressed to me in Angela's handwriting. My hands shook as I pulled out the single page inside. The letter was dated 2003, 4 years after she'd left. "He needed me more than you ever did," it read. No greeting, no signature except for 2 initials at the bottom. A and T. My mouth went dry. T. Thomas. I spent the weekend in a fog, that letter burning in my mind. Thomas. The name that had haunted the edges of my marriage, whispered by neighbors and Angela's co-workers, dismissed by me as gossip. Thomas Barrett. He'd worked with Angela at the medical supply company downtown. Tall, confident, always wearing expensive suits that seemed out of place in our small town. I'd met him once at a company picnic. He'd shaken my hand firmly, smiled at Angela a moment too long. I'd been young then, trusting, stupid. Now I pulled out old photo albums, searching for confirmation. There, in a picture from 1997, Angela stood beside Thomas at some work event. Her hand rested on his arm. How had I not seen it? I opened my laptop and typed his name into the search bar. The first result made my blood stop. Thomas Barrett, father of Travis Barrett, managing partner at Barrett and Associates. My son-in-law's father was the man who destroyed my marriage. I sat staring at the screen until my eyes burned. The pieces fell together with sick clarity. Angela hadn't just had an affair. She'd left me for Thomas Barrett. And now, 25 years later, his son had married my daughter and was standing in my place, rewriting history, turning me into the villain. I laughed, a harsh sound in the empty house. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Did Lauren know? Did Travis? Or had fate played this twisted joke without anyone realizing the connection? I grabbed my phone, pulled up Lauren's contact, then set it down. What would I even say? Your husband's father stole your mother? We're all tangled in a web of lies that started before you could remember. Instead, I opened my laptop again and started researching. If I was going to confront this, I needed evidence. I needed the truth, all of it, laid bare and undeniable. Monday morning, I drove to Riverside, the town where Angela had lived after leaving me. I found Ruth Carmichael's address through an old Christmas card list. She'd been Angela's closest friend, her confidant. If anyone knew the truth, it would be Ruth. She answered the door slowly, recognition dawning on her weathered face. Mark Ellison, she said softly. It's been years. We sat in her cluttered living room, tea cooling between us. She was hesitant at first, measuring her words carefully. But when I told her about Travis, about the dinner, something shifted in her expression. Angela did have an affair, she finally admitted. With Thomas Barrett. He was married too. It was messy. She stirred her tea absently. Angela said he promised to leave his wife for her. I didn't believe him, but Angela did. She was so convinced. Ruth's voice dropped. I think he actually did leave. Eventually. Ruth disappeared into her bedroom and returned with a dusty shoebox. Angela left this here years ago, when she moved the last time. Said she'd pick it up but never did. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were photographs of Angela and Thomas together, vacation snapshots, dinner dates. Beneath those, letters in his handwriting, promising love, promising forever. And at the bottom, a lease agreement from 1998. The apartment was in Angela's name. But the co-signer line made my breath catch, Thomas Barrett. They'd lived together. After she left me, after she took my daughter, she'd moved in with him. I flipped the paper over. On the back, in Angela's handwriting, was a note, keep Lauren away from Mark, he'll ruin everything. The words hit like a fist. She hadn't just left me. She'd systematically destroyed my relationship with my daughter to protect her new life with Thomas. To protect her lies. I remembered the day Lauren stopped calling me Dad. She was 13, voice cold on the phone. Mark, she'd said, not Dad, just Mark. I don't want to visit anymore. I'd begged her to tell me what I'd done wrong. She'd hung up. For years, I blamed myself. I replayed every conversation, every visit, searching for my failure. But there was no failure. There was only Angela, whispering poison, rewriting history, turning me into the monster so Thomas could play the hero. My daughter grew up believing I'd abandoned them, when the truth was the opposite. I'd been erased. Replaced. Now I sat in my car outside Ruth's house, staring at the evidence scattered across my passenger seat. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren, Travis says it's best you stay home next time. It's awkward for the kids. I read it 3 times. Then I set the phone down without responding. I wouldn't rush this. I'd spent 25 years living with lies. I could wait a little longer for the truth to surface. That week, I organized everything methodically. Photos in one folder, letters in another. The lease agreement in a clear plastic sleeve. I made copies of everything, stored them in 3 separate locations. My neighbor, Helen Pritchard, noticed me carrying boxes to my car. She'd been a family law attorney before retiring. Mark, what's going on? She asked, concerned. I showed her some of the documents. She read silently, her expression darkening. This is complex, she finally said. Your ex-wife and this Thomas Barrett, they live together? I nodded. She tapped the lease agreement thoughtfully. You know, Thomas Barrett's estate was in the news a few years back. He died, and there was a dispute over his will. Messy situation. My pulse quickened. What kind of dispute? She shrugged. I don't remember details, but public records might show something. Estate files are accessible at the county office. The next morning, I was waiting when they opened. The clerk handed me a thick file, Thomas Barrett's probate records. I sat at a reading table, hands unsteady as I turned pages. Standard stuff at first: properties, investments, debts. Then I found the section marked beneficiaries and trusts. My vision narrowed. Listed clearly: Angela Barrett, Spousal Trust Fund, $75,000. She'd taken his name. They'd been married. I kept reading. Further down, Education Trust for Lauren Barrett, $50,000, transferred 2005. My daughter's college fund. The one Angela had told me I'd failed to contribute enough to, that had somehow been covered by loans and grants. It hadn't been grants. It had been Thomas Barrett's money. I sat back, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Lauren had been raised on his money, educated with his money, living in his world while I sent child support checks that were probably laughed at. At the bottom of the page, a notation made my blood freeze: per deceased's wishes, funds designated for daughter's future. Daughter. Not stepdaughter. I read that line 5 times. Thomas Barrett had called Lauren his daughter in his will. Not his stepdaughter, not his wife's child. His daughter. The implications crashed over me like a wave. Could it be true? Could Lauren not be mine? 25 years of wondering, of aching for my daughter, and she might not even be my biological child? I stumbled out of the records office into harsh sunlight. My phone rang, Lauren's number. I almost didn't answer. Dad? Her voice was small. Are you okay? You didn't respond to my text. I leaned against my car, fighting for composure. I'm fine, sweetheart. Listen, about Travis at dinner, he was just joking around. You know how he is. No, I didn't know. But I was learning. It's okay, Lauren. We talked for a few more minutes, awkward small talk that felt like strangers pretending. When I hung up, I made a decision. I drove to a DNA testing facility. They could test paternity with samples I already had. The lab technician was a young woman with kind eyes. I explained what I needed: confirmation of paternity. She nodded professionally, no judgment. I provided my sample and a strand of Lauren's hair I'd saved from years ago, back when she still visited, when she'd left her hairbrush at my house. The technician processed the paperwork, then paused. Mr. Ellison, these results typically take 2 weeks. But I should mention, sometimes families discover unexpected things. Are you prepared for any outcome? I met her gaze. I need to know the truth. She nodded and took the samples to the back. I sat in the waiting room, watching strangers come and go, all carrying their own secrets, their own desperate need for answers. 2 weeks felt like an eternity. But I'd waited 25 years already. What was 14 more days? I drove home through evening traffic, my mind churning. If Lauren wasn't mine biologically, did it change anything? She was still my daughter. I'd raised her, loved her, fought for her. Blood didn't erase that. But it would explain so much. Angela's urgency to leave. Thomas's willingness to upend his life. The way Lauren had been turned against me so completely. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon during my lunch period. I stepped into an empty classroom to take it. Mr. Ellison, your results are ready. I drove straight to the lab after school, my heart hammering. The technician handed me a sealed envelope. You might want to sit down, she said gently. Inside, the results were laid out in clinical language. Lauren was my biological daughter, 99.9% probability of paternity. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by confusion. Then I saw the next section. Additional genetic markers indicate a familial relationship between subject's DNA and comparative sample Travis Barrett. They'd somehow cross-referenced. The technician explained. Your daughter shares 25% of her DNA with Travis Barrett. That indicates they share one grandparent. Given the ages and family history you provided, the most likely explanation is that Thomas Barrett fathered both Lauren and Travis's parent. The room tilted. They're half-siblings, I whispered. The technician's silence confirmed it. Thomas had fathered Lauren with Angela while still married to his wife, who'd given birth to Travis's father. Lauren and Travis shared a biological grandfather. They were blood relatives. And they were married. I sat in my car for an hour, unable to move. What was I supposed to do with this information? If I told Lauren, it would destroy her. Her marriage, her identity, everything she thought she knew about her family would shatter. But could I let them continue living this lie? Were there health concerns? Legal issues? The ethical weight crushed me. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lauren's face at that dinner table, looking away as Travis humiliated me. She believed the lies. Believed I was the failure. Meanwhile, she'd married into the family that destroyed ours, unknowingly perpetuating the cycle of deception that started before she was born. My phone lit up with a message. Travis, family memorial next month for Angela. Lauren wants you there. Try not to make it awkward. I stared at the text. A memorial for Angela, the woman who'd stolen my life and rewritten history. And Travis, who had no idea his family tree was a twisted knot of betrayal, was inviting me to honor her memory. I typed one word, okay. The time for silence was ending. I spent the next month preparing. Every document organized, every photo labeled, every piece of evidence cross-referenced and verified. I had the DNA results printed professionally, sealed in an official envelope. I had the lease agreement showing Thomas and Angela living together. I had his will naming Lauren as his daughter. I had Ruth's written statement, notarized, explaining the affair. I had everything. My hands shook as I placed it all in a leather portfolio. This would devastate Lauren. It would expose Travis's family legacy of destruction. It would tear apart the careful fiction they'd built. But lies always collapse eventually. The question was whether I'd be there to tell the truth or let it come out some other way, messier, crueler. I chose truth. The night before the memorial, I rehearsed what I'd say. Not angry, not vindictive, just factual. Simple. Here is what happened. Here is who your mother really was. Here is the man she left me for. And here is why it matters now. I packed the portfolio carefully, placed it in my car. Tomorrow, everything would change. The memorial was held at a community center Angela's sister had rented. Photos of Angela lined the walls, smiling, vibrant, frozen in moments I wasn't part of. Lauren greeted me with a careful hug. Thanks for coming, Dad. Travis stood nearby, watching with barely concealed disdain. The service began with music, then testimonials. Angela's sister spoke about her kindness. A former co-worker remembered her laugh. Then Travis stepped to the microphone. Angela was the strongest woman I ever knew, he began. She raised Lauren alone, worked hard, sacrificed everything. Each word was a lie. Each sentence rewrote history. She taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. He looked directly at me. It's about being present. The room murmured agreement. Lauren wiped tears. My jaw clenched. When Travis finished, Lauren stood. Would anyone else like to share memories? Her eyes found mine, hopeful. Before I could respond, Travis interjected. Do we really need a speech from him? The room went quiet. Lauren's face flushed. And something inside me snapped. I stood slowly, holding Angela's wedding ring between my fingers. Everyone's eyes followed the movement. "You're right, Travis," I said calmly. "Maybe I shouldn't talk about Angela." I walked to the front, each step measured. "Maybe I should talk about the man she left me for instead." Gasps rippled through the room. Travis paled. Lauren looked confused, caught between worlds. "You all knew him?" "Thomas Barrett." More gasps. Angela's sister's mouth fell open. "They lived together after she left me. Raised Lauren together. Built a life together." I pulled out the lease agreement, held it up. "Here's proof. Thomas co-signed their apartment. Paid for Lauren's college through his estate. Called her his daughter in his will." My voice remained steady, almost gentle. "Thomas Barrett destroyed 2 families when he had his affair with Angela. Mine, and his own." Travis was shaking his head. "This is insane." "My grandfather," "Yes," I interrupted. "Your grandfather. Thomas Barrett." The room erupted in whispers. "But there's something more you both deserve to know," I said, looking at Lauren and Travis. "Something Angela and Thomas never told anyone." I pulled out the DNA results. "These explain everything." I handed Lauren the envelope. She stared at it like it might burn her. Travis moved to grab it, but she held it away. "What is this?" she whispered. "DNA test results," I said quietly. "Mine and yours. Confirming I'm your biological father, which I never doubted. But also showing something else. Something the lab discovered when they ran the full analysis." Lauren's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. She read slowly, her face draining of color. Travis snatched it from her, scanned the page, then dropped it like it was on fire. "This isn't possible," he muttered. "You faked this." I pulled out a second copy, handed it to Angela's sister. "The lab will verify the results if you call them. The documentation is all authentic." Lauren's voice came out broken. "Dad, what does this mean? It says Travis and I share a grandparent?" I nodded. "Thomas Barrett fathered you with your mother while still married. His son from that marriage is Travis's father. You and Travis are blood relatives. Half-uncle and niece, technically, but functionally half-siblings." The room exploded. Voices overlapping, shock, denial, horror. Lauren collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Travis stood frozen, face white as paper. Travis finally found his voice. "You're lying. You made all this up because you're bitter and pathetic." But Angela's sister was reading the documents now, her face crumbling. "Oh my God, Angela. What did you do?" She looked at me with devastated eyes. "I knew about Thomas. I knew they were together. But I didn't know about." She gestured helplessly at the DNA results. Lauren was hyperventilating. Her best friend rushed to her side, helping her breathe. Travis paced like a caged animal. "This is slander. I'll sue you for defamation." "Truth isn't defamation," I said quietly. "And I have more evidence." Ruth Carmichael's statement. Your grandfather's probate records. Letters between Thomas and Angela. I looked at him directly. Your family destroyed mine. And now you've married into it without knowing what your grandfather did. That's not your fault. But what you said at dinner, how you've treated me, that is your fault. Travis's phone was ringing. He looked at it, his office. He ignored it. It rang again. Then again. Someone had already started talking. The whispers were spreading. Within hours, this would be everywhere. The memorial dissolved into chaos. Guests left quickly, whispering. Lauren sat frozen, tears streaming. I approached carefully. "Lauren, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you." She looked up, eyes red. "Did Mom know that Travis and I were related?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. The timeline doesn't work. Thomas probably never told her about his other family." "But she knew about you," Lauren whispered. "She knew she was lying about you abandoning us." I nodded. She broke down again, sobbing into her hands. Travis stood across the room, on his phone now, voice rising. "I don't care what the board says. This is a private family matter." But it wasn't private anymore. Someone had taken photos of the documents. By morning, they'd be online. Lauren looked at me through tears. "What am I supposed to do now?" "I don't know, sweetheart. But you'll figure it out." She grabbed my hands suddenly, desperately. "Did you ever stop loving me? Even when I shut you out?" My throat closed. "Never. Not for 1 second." She collapsed into my arms, and I held my daughter for the first time in years, while her world fell apart around us. The next morning, Travis's firm issued a statement. "Travis Barrett is stepping down from his position as managing partner amid personal family matters." The news spread fast. Social media exploded with speculation. I turned off my phone, unplugged my internet. Lauren stayed at a hotel, refusing to go home. Travis hired lawyers, demanded I retract my statements, threatened legal action. But truth is an absolute defense. Every document I'd presented was authentic. Every claim was verified. His lawyers knew it. Within a week, his business partnership started dissolving. Clients pulled contracts. His reputation, built on the Barrett name, crumbled under the weight of his grandfather's sins. I felt no satisfaction, only tired sadness. This wasn't revenge. It was just consequences finally catching up to decades of lies. Lauren filed for legal separation. Their marriage might not even be valid given the blood relation, depending on the state laws. It would take lawyers months to sort out. I drove to her hotel one evening. She answered the door looking exhausted. "Can I come in?" I asked. She nodded. We sat in her hotel room, silence heavy between us. Finally, Lauren spoke. "I read all the letters. The ones from the shoebox Ruth gave you." She wiped her eyes. "Mom lied about everything. She told me you left us. That you didn't care. That you chose your job over family. I know. I was so angry at you. For years. I wouldn't take your calls. Sent back your letters." Her voice broke. "And the whole time, you were the one telling the truth." I reached for her hand. "Your mom was complicated. She made bad choices. But she loved you. She poisoned me against you to hide her affair." Lauren's voice turned hard. "That's not love. It's human," I said quietly. "Flawed and selfish, but human." We talked for hours that night. I told her everything I remembered about our life before Angela left. The good times, the laughter, the ordinary moments that had been erased from her memory. "I want my kids to know you," she finally said. "Really know you. Not the version Travis fed them. I'd like that." She hesitated. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "There's nothing to forgive," I said. "You were a child. You believed what you were told. I'm not a child anymore. I should have questioned it." "Maybe," I agreed. "But you're questioning it now. That's what matters." A month later, Lauren showed up at my house with her kids. 2 boys, 8 and 6, who looked at me with curious eyes. "Boys, this is your grandfather." "My dad." We spent the afternoon in my backyard. I taught them how to identify birds, showed them my small garden. Simple things. Normal things. Inside, Lauren helped me make dinner. We moved around the kitchen in careful synchronization, rebuilding something that had been broken so long it felt like discovering an old photograph. Travis is moving to Seattle, she said quietly. His mother's family is there. He says he needs distance. How do you feel about that? She shrugged. Relieved, mostly. It's easier with him gone. Her youngest son ran in, asking about dessert. She smiled, tousled his hair. After dinner, buddy. When they left that evening, Lauren hugged me tightly. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on you. I'm your father, I said simply. That doesn't stop. I watched them drive away, taillights disappearing into dusk. My house felt different now. Less empty. Like something lost had finally found its way home. The scandal died down eventually. Local news moved on. Travis's business collapse was complete. He sold everything at a loss, relocated, started over under his mother's maiden name. The Barrett name was finished in our town. I saw an article months later, Legacy of Deception, how one man's secrets destroyed multiple families. Thomas Barrett's photo was featured prominently. The article detailed the affair, the abandoned families, the financial entanglement. It painted Angela as a victim and villain simultaneously, which felt accurate. They'd reached out for my comment. I declined. I'd said everything I needed to say that day at the memorial. At school, students and colleagues treated me differently. With respect, maybe. Or pity. I wasn't sure which and didn't particularly care. I had 3 years until retirement. I'd finish them quietly, then disappear into the life I'd been building in the margins all along. Lauren visited every weekend now. Her boys called me Grandpa without hesitation. We went fishing, built model airplanes, had dinner together. Normal family things that felt extraordinary after so much loss. I was healing. Slowly. Lauren was too. 6 months after the memorial, I sat on my porch watching fireflies dance across the darkening yard. Lauren was inside with the boys, helping them with homework. Her laugh drifted through the open window, genuine and light. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. You were right about everything. I'm sorry for what I said. No name, but I knew it was Travis. I stared at the message for a long moment. Thought about responding, then deleted it instead. Some apologies come too late. Some wounds don't need acknowledgement to heal. I set the phone down and looked at the stars beginning to appear. For 25 years, I'd carried the weight of other people's lies. I'd been called a failure, an abandoner, a bad father. I'd watched my daughter grow up believing I didn't love her while I sent cards and letters she never read. But the truth, once spoken, had destroyed those lies more thoroughly than any revenge I could have planned. I hadn't ruined anyone. I just stopped protecting the people who'd spent decades ruining me. Inside, Lauren called, "Dad, dinner's ready." I smiled and stood, walking toward the light and laughter and the family I thought I'd lost forever. The truth hadn't just set me free. It had brought my daughter home.